she said she wants to do it again. So when I asked her, how are the babies and how are the fur babies, she was like, they're good. She was like, I almost said my last baby, but I'm gonna say my third is doing well. And I was like, your third, not your last? She was like, no, I think I want to do it again. So I was just like, oh my God, God bless you. So she and I are the same age. Thanks for clicking on Simply Tanika. I am Tanika. If you are new here, welcome. Hit that subscribe button. Let's hang out a while. If you are returning, welcome back. What's up, fertility fam? We gotta do what? Let's get those babies, ladies. Drops fall and the beauty of it all. Good afternoon. What's up, fertility fam? Today is Tuesday. It is the 26th of March, which is crazy. I'm in the park. It's in the middle of the day. It's nice out, right? I mean, it's not quite spring. Technically it's spring, but it doesn't look like spring. Anyway, I'm headed to the dermatologist's office, Dr. Halem. So I wanted to take you guys with me. Dr. Halem, you'll remember, is the woman who had IVF with her own eggs. She had it's either 7 or 9 miscarriages, and went to see an immunologist to figure out what was going on because her body, this wind, sorry guys, because her body was rejecting the babies, obviously. And then they sorted that out. She had the egg retrieval at 44, and then she's gone on to have 3 normal babies. And I say normal because they did the retrieval and they did testing on it, and all of her embryos came back abnormal. They were Mosaic. And the doctor that I was telling you guys about last week is the one, Dr. Zan, over at New Hope, is the one who put them back in. And all of his colleagues were kind of like, you're crazy. He did it, and she's got 3 kids. She just had the 3rd one last year at 47. They're all fine. Anyway, so she's like my IVF unicorn. She always gives me hope. So I'm excited to talk to her. I'm going to talk to her about Dr. Zan. Obviously, I'm going in for a skin check, but she just happens to be my IVF unicorn, and she knows I'm trying, and she's very open to sharing information. But she did tell me, she always cautions, remember, my eggs were retrieved at 44. So, everybody wants me to be realistic. I get it. I appreciate it. All right, I'll talk to you guys when I get there. I'm sort of winded now. I'm in the room. It's been a little bit of a wait, but I'm here. Hopefully it's not long. All right, fam, all done, headed back. And I'm gonna come back in 2 weeks. I'm actually gonna get filler and some micro needling to kind of smooth out some of my acne scars. So we'll see how that looks. I'm as excited. She said she's going to do one more IVF. She was like, I said, how are the babies? And she was like, the third one. I'm not going to say the last. And I was like, what do you mean? She was like, I think I want more. I didn't get into it because her assistant was in the room, but I'm guessing that means she has more embryos. I think that's so cool. Anyway, I'm all done. I hope your day is going well. Hey fam, all right, I'm home. I'm not sure how much of what I was saying you heard, so I'm just gonna make sure we have coverage. I went to see Dr. Halem. I went because I'm doing all my checkups, and last year I went this time and they said I needed to come back for a skin check, basically just to follow up on what she has been giving me. She'd done it like 30 days after she gave it to me to make sure I was responding well, and now it's just a year later. If you were here with me last year, you know that my skin has greatly improved. I'll find last April and do a side-by-side for you, but it's a lot smoother, and so I'm pleased with it. She's pleased with it. I want to bump it up to the next level, so I'm going to do the micro needling, which is like little holes. It'll bring the collagen up to help kind of smooth out some of the deeper acne scars that I have, and then I'm going to do a little filler. So she's going to put some here and a little bit right here. So I'll go back in 2 weeks for that. Nothing crazy. You know, I'm not going to look like a Kardashian, but just a little plumping, if you will. So that was my procedural stuff, but Dr. Halem is also my IVF unicorn. So she has had 9 miscarriages, went to Dr. Braverman, who's an immunologist here in New York City, and they got whatever it was sorted out so that she could, you know, carry a child to term. When I met with her last year, I asked her how did she make it through the 9, and she said she got dogs, fur babies, because she knew she was going to be a mom, and that helped her be a mom in a way, like mom to the fur babies, until she could get over the hump, which that stuck with me. What happened was then she did another round of IVF. Oh, and she's a single mom by choice, if I haven't mentioned that. So she went through another round of IVF, and she got some embryos, obviously. The embryos came back, they were tested, they came back abnormal. She did the PGS testing. And specifically, they were Mosaic. That has always stuck with me, which is why I was like, I don't know if I need PGS testing. I don't know if I believe, and I keep saying testing, it's screening, pre-genetic screening, PGS. I don't know if I believe in the pre-genetic screening, because after I heard her story, I did a bunch of research, and sometimes, in fact, half the time they are wrong. So sometimes they don't even get if it's a boy or a girl, and that's a 50-50 shot, right? So I just wasn't sold on it. Put them back. Dr. Khan, who is the one that I'm going to see at New Hope Fertility, who Nikki came and saw this month. And this doctor put the abnormals back, and it was unheard of at that time, but there had been some research and some studies, not on humans, and everyone, you know, his peers kind of gasped at like, how could you? And he did. He explained to her what the risks were. She fully understood. She's also a doctor. So they got to talk all sciencey stuff to each other. Even though they're very different doctors, obviously, I'm only making that point of like what her intelligence level is and what her ability to understand. Because, you know, we all know people who will watch the same movie that we watch. And if you did see Us, you know what I'm talking about. And get totally different interpretations. Part of that is because the filmmaker wants you to have different interpretations, but also because your perspective and the way you process information is different. So I say she's also a doctor, and that they both went to medical school. They both have a similar style of learning or ability to comprehend in that way. So she knew fully what her risks were. She wasn't uninformed. And so did it. First baby was normal. She did that at 45. Then she had another at 46. Last year when I went to see her, she was pregnant at 47. We talked about my own IVF. She cautioned me, with your own eggs, you're gonna have a lower percentage of chance. Remember that I have my 44-year-old egg, my 44-year-old embryo inside of my 47-year-old body. So fair enough. It's fine. It's still motivation about being unconventional and pushing the boundaries, right? Like, that's the inspiration. That's why she's my IVF unicorn. And she said she wants to do it again. So when I asked her, how are the babies and how are the fur babies? She was like, they're good. She was like, I almost said my last baby, but I'm going to say my third. My third is doing well. And I was like, your third, not your last? She was like, no, I think I want to do it again. So I was just like, oh my God, God bless you. So she and I are the same age. I don't know when she's going to turn 48. She may have turned it already or may turn after I do in May. But the fact that she wants to do it again and she already has 3 is amazing. The other single mom by choice that I met, who happens to work where I work, and they did like a panel, she also has just had her 4th last year. She also has multiple. She had twins on one round. So she's had 3 pregnancies. It was her 3rd pregnancy last year. Is that right? Yeah, that was her 4th child. So I love that they're building their families that way. And as single moms by choice, I just found it inspiring. So I say all that to say, I don't necessarily always, and I've had this conversation with some of you guys, just because one doctor is like, I have to do it this way, doesn't mean I necessarily believe that's the only way to do it. And I know before I was like, I'm not into pre-genetic screening, but now this new doctor over at Share Fertility believes it can increase my odds. So I'm going to follow what he says because he has more practice with it. Like, I am only sitting back reading and saying, this is what I see and this is what I understand, but he has practice with it. And so if that's one of the things in his whole toolbox that he's using to help him be successful, I'll try it with him. Because that's the thing, you don't know which thing in the toolbox is tipping it in your favor or out of your favor. So why would I come along and tell this man how to run his practice? If I were opposed to it, I would find someone else, or I would just tell him I don't want to do that, and he was fine with that. He just said that's what his recommendation was. I'm going to follow his recommendation. That wasn't necessarily my previous RE's recommendation. We talked about it. I said, this is what I'm leaning toward. She said, that's okay. You know, that works. However, it didn't matter when we came down to the circumstances, because even this new doctor, and I hope I'm going to say his name wrong, Dr. Heininger, I'll put his name down here. He said, I would have done the exact same thing. I get it. You had 1 egg, you had 1 embryo. Get it back into mommy as soon as possible, 3 days. They're gonna take it out of that medium that it's been growing in that 1 dish after it fertilized. They're gonna put it in another one on day 3. Why not put it back into you? So even though he has his standard care, he said in that situation he would have done the same thing, right? So some doctors have one way, some doctors have another way, some doctors have multiple ways as the information is coming toward you. He said the same thing about fresh and frozen that Dr. McConnell said, which I also liked, that there is no hard and fast rule. He was like, for many years, we only did fresh, and look at all the successes we had. He said, now there seems to be a trend toward frozen, but there is no scientific evidence that one is more successful than the other. There isn't, and just so you guys know, like, if you're reading studies, that they will say specifically in the study that there is a statistical significance, right? It has to be statistically significant, the difference, for them to say one is better than the other. There isn't anything that is statistically significant about fresh versus frozen overall. Now, a specific clinic may have it. I haven't read all the statistics for every clinic in America or worldwide. If you see that in that clinic, then definitely, again, go with that, because that clinic has developed a set of tools that works for them. Don't start messing with their tools. Like, take the information in as it comes, understand what your toll gates are going to be, and then when you have that decision to make that decision, right? So for years, they didn't. Now there's a trend, mainly because most people are doing PGS testing. Some doctors believe the uterine environment needs to be changed. It depends on how many meds you have. It's very specific to what's happening. So I like it when doctors are flexible and that they acknowledge what I have found on my own, right? Like, if I've done detective work and then the doctor tells me something totally off, I don't trust them, because now they're skewing information or they are slanting the information. When they confirm what I've already researched and we're interpreting it the same way, that's spot on for me. If not, what's happened before, if things have been different, there's only one doctor who totally was
slanting, skewing the truth. But in other instances, when I had questions about like, well, what about this? Or I read this, we would get to an understanding and they would clarify, well, in this instance, it's this, in this instance, it's that. But my point is, you should be able to substantiate somewhere else from another source that what your doctor's telling you is, in fact, the truth, especially when it comes to statistics and data and percentages, likelihoods. That should be well documented, because in order to get there, there has had to have been studies, right? Like percentages, studies, experiments, conclusions have been drawn, people have been weighed in. If the paper is published, other people had to verify it. So that gives me like a higher degree of, hey, this is the way to go. So yeah, that's my experience today with my IVF Unicorn. That is why I was not, you know, such a huge fan of pre-genetic screening. Obviously, if I do get more than one and we decide that that makes sense, I'll try it. We'll see if that increases my odds. Like the doctor was saying, I would go from 5 or 6% chance of success rate to 67%, which is almost as high as if I had somebody else's baby, i.e. donor eggs, which that would bump me up to 80% chance of successful full-term pregnancy, or I guess successful take-home baby. I'm saying that because there's a specific thing about full term. As long as I get to take a baby home, whether it's full term or not, I'm fine with that. So I'll call that a successful pregnancy. But yeah, I'm open. I just want to be informed. I want to be a part of the decision making, and I want to understand like why we're pointing in one direction or the other. So that's my story. Dr. Khan, who is the one who put the embryos, the Mosaic embryos, back in Dr. Halem, is also the doctor that does the 3-parent IVF, which 3-parent is kind of like a pressy thing. Basically, they take the mitochondria out of a donor egg, pop it into your egg, inseminate it with the sperm of your choice, and watch it grow in a dish after it fertilizes. So if you have questions about that treatment, let me know, because I think I kind of skipped over it the last time. May or may not have had a little wine. But if you have more questions, I know, because I was talking to Genesis and I was like, they only do it in Mexico. And she's like, what kind of thing is that? And I'm like, it's mitochondrial transfer. FDA has said don't do it here. There are some ethical questions that they have about it, or they don't feel it's appropriate. For me, it takes a lot of my reservations away about the donor situation. One, it would have my own I would have my own child related to me, and I don't have to explain about later, you're not like biologically mine, or explain if you take a 23andMe test why this other person is showing up as likely your mother, etc. So yeah, those are the options, but not this video. If you want to hear about it, let me know down below. All right, ladies, I'll talk to you later. Bye. Baby, that's to you all.